To the logo on my chest and tell them, slam me, ego, slam me, ego, slam me, ego, slam me, hey, hit it up hard, hit it with a strike, from the national anthem to the bottom of the night. Amen. Slam me, ego, slam me, ego, slam me, ego, slam me, hey, you already know what's up. What's that? Another home run. We should know the job ain't done till we hold that trophy up. Hey.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 305 of the Talking Friars podcast and YouTube show. I am Ben Fadden. The Padres are signing Seth Lugo. He pitched for the New York Mets last year. This is the reaction. Thank you so much for joining here. According to Joel Sherman here, he says Seth Lugo's agreement with the Padres is pending a physical. It is for 2 years with an opt-out after this season, and it is in the $15 million range. So 2 years, around $15 million, according to Fabian Ardaya, and an opt-out after 2023. So that doesn't break the bank. It's not like you're giving Mike Clevenger $12 million in one season. You're giving Seth Lugo a 1-year deal, maybe a 2-year deal if he doesn't opt out, but let's say a 1-year deal, $7.5 million, somewhere around there probably. That helps the Padres. If you want some background on Seth Lugo, he's a reliever, but he's going to get a chance to start. That's what it seems like, and that's what we've been hearing. We've heard that the Padres have been interested in Seth Lugo for like weeks. I think it was at the winter meetings we were hearing about it as well, and there was recent reports this past weekend that it was the Padres, the Dodgers, the Nationals who were in on Seth Lugo. The Nationals, why would he want to go to the Nationals, right, when you can go to the Padres or the Dodgers, who are two playoff contenders? So we knew it was going to come down to the Padres or the Dodgers, and looks like the Padres get him. According to, this is Fabian Ardaya. He is a beat writer, it looks like, for the Dodgers of The Athletic. 2 years, like I just said, just north of $15 million, opt out after 2023. According to John Heyman, he's reporting that Lugo will have the chance to start with the Padres, which is his desire. Keyword there, chance. So this seems like, to me, what Nick Martinez was to the Padres last year. Nick Martinez seems like he's going to be a starting pitcher. But last year, he was starting, then he went to the bullpen, and it didn't really seem like he had much of a choice. I hope the Padres will get more starting pitching, that they're not only going to get Lugo, and that's going to be their rotation, and their like 6 starters going to be Julio Teheran. Like, I hope that they get someone else there, and Lugo is more like fighting for a rotation spot with someone, with whether that's Nick Martinez, or maybe they split some starts to start the year, or they go with the 6-man rotation like they did at one point last year to kind of preserve guys' health. I don't want to give Seth Lugo a spot in the rotation, and that is all. Like, that's the rotation. I don't want that to happen. This guy, he has not started consistently since 2017. And I don't even know if you want to say that was him starting consistently. 2017, he had a 4.71 ERA. He started 18 games. He appeared in 19. So in the major leagues, he consistently started. But 18 starts in a season, that's not a lot, right? So this guy has not started in a long time. Sure, you can want to be a starting pitcher. I want a lot of things. That doesn't mean that I get them, right? So he's going to have to work on this. He's going to have to work to be a starter consistently for this team, because he's alongside a lot of good starting pitchers, obviously, in this rotation. And I would be surprised. I'll say this again. I would be surprised if AJ Preller goes into spring training and there's not at least another starter that he brings in. Now, I was throwing this around in my head. Maybe what they do with Lugo is they have him start games, and they have Adrian Morejon, who's a lefty. They bring him in, and that's kind of like a piggyback, like they did at some points last year with a couple of guys. Maybe that's what they want to do. So maybe they don't think that Lugo is like ready to be a full-time starter. but they're going to say, hey, we'll let you start games. We'll let you go, 3 innings, 4 innings, whatever. And then we'll give it to Morahone, who the Padres probably don't think is ready to go start games for a full year either. Maybe that's what we're looking at, right? Because Lugo is a righty, Morahone's a lefty. I kind of like that combination. Last year, Lugo had a 3.60 ERA. His WAR was a little less than 1, 62 appearances. He didn't start any games. He has not started a game since 2020 with the Mets when he started 7. That was obviously a short season. I don't know what their situation was with the rotation. Maybe guys were hurt, and so that's why he was starting games. But he has not started games, like been a starter like that as his primary role in the big leagues since 2017. That's a long time ago. So I sure hope that this is not the only other starting pitching addition that the Padres get this offseason. Let me see here. I don't see anything else so far on social media. So let's say that Seth Lugo at some point he does not stick in the rotation and it just doesn't work out. Putting him in the bullpen, that's not a bad thing. Now your bullpen gets even deeper if Lugo does go to the bullpen come postseason time or at some point in the season. Because right now, right now the bullpen is Suarez and Hader, Pomerantz, Garcia, Tim Hill, maybe Morahone if you want to put him in there. Lopez, who they got in the Rule 5 draft from Tampa. Like, that's what it looks like right now. So that's pretty solid, I think. That's pretty strong. And if you add in Seth Lugo to that come postseason time or whatever, I really, really like that bullpen. Now, guys have to stay healthy, but Hader in his last season, I would think the Padres are just trying to go all out with him. They probably don't want to try to bring him back in 2024, like pay him a bunch of money to come back. Just use him up this year in 2023. See how it goes, with him pitching consistently, and you have the rest of those guys in the bullpen. If Pomerantz stays healthy, obviously, that is a big boost. So I'm looking at this as, okay, the Padres, they have added a quality arm. I'm not really looking at this as the Padres have added a starting pitcher and this is the rotation. I know Lugo's going to, in spring training, he's going to try to start games. That's his desire. And the Padres are, it seems like they're allowing him to contest for games or compete. That's what I meant to say. They're allowing him to compete to be a starter. But I view it just him as a pitcher. He can be a reliever. That's what he's done for the last 4 years. He can start, or he can. I don't know how long he's going to go, but he can start games. So I view it as a quality arm, and I view it as, okay, this is a good piece. $7-8 million a year probably, because it's 2 years, $15 million. Yeah, $7.5 million each year according to John Heyman. That just came down. So that doesn't. That's not $30 million a year like for some starting pitchers have gone this winter, right? Just 7.5. That's less than Manaea. That's less than, right? I think that's less than Manaea. That's less than Clevenger. Clevenger could get up to 12 million with the White Sox. I'd rather have Lugo than Clevenger. I'd rather have Lugo than Manaea. Maybe as a starter, maybe I'd rather have Manaea. But in terms of guys I trust in the postseason, do I trust Lugo or do I trust Manaea? As of now, I probably trust Lugo more. Maybe that's me trusting Lugo as a reliever instead of a starter, but just based on who I trust more, just looking at the guy, I trust Lugo more than either of those options. And as for the stuff that Lugo has, I can look up his baseball savant page and see what we got here. And I'll also look up what he did in the postseason. I don't think he did bad for the Mets in that one series against the Padres. I could be wrong here, but let me look. Postseason, his only 3 postseason career games were against the Padres here. He pitched in all 3 games of that wild card series. So that tells you how much the Mets relied on Seth Lugo, right? Their bullpen was like a 2-guy bullpen. It was Edwin Diaz. It was Seth Lugo. That's the only guys who they trusted. They wanted to go from the starting pitcher and go to Diaz or go to Lugo for multiple innings, and that's all they wanted. So that makes me comfortable, makes me more confident in this signing that he was one of the Mets' top relievers. So this isn't just, oh, maybe he'll start or maybe he'll be like a last guy in the bullpen. No, he's a quality arm. Let me look up here this Baseball Savant page. If you have any questions, guys, leave those in the chat for me. It can be about Lugo. It can be about the Padres. Okay, so this is his Baseball Savant page. Should I share the screen? Hang on here. Let me share my screen here and show this to you. Sorry for the podcast audience, but you can go watch it on YouTube if you want, or just look it up. So this is his Baseball Savant page. Has a pretty good K rate. Doesn't look like people chase against him. He has a great curveball spin rate. That's what I've noticed immediately off the bat here. Fastball spin, it doesn't seem like anyone really hits the ball hard off of him. Doesn't walk too many guys. So, yeah, that's pretty good. That's just my initial glance at it. Less people found the sweet spot on their bats last year compared to 2021 off of him. He's entering his age 33 season. So if he opts in 2024, Padres will have him for his age 20 or not 20, age 33 and 34 season, I believe. That's what it looks like here. Less people hit the ball hard off of him. If you look at this hard hit percentage, 33%, and then it was 38 last or the year before in 2021. And then in 2020, I know it was a shorter year, but it was even higher then, 42.6. He walks little less than 6%, or a little more than 6% of his batters this year. So he finds the strike zone consistently. So I like seeing that. I definitely like seeing that. So right now the rotation is Darvish, Snell, Musgrove, Martinez, and Lugo, and then Tehran, Morahone, Kinnear, Weathers, Pedro Avila. I know I'm forgetting someone else. Jay Groom, did I say him? They're probably fighting for a rotation spot against Lugo, or they're just fighting for a last bullpen spot, whatever. And then the bullpen right now, you got how many 8 relievers? Because 5 starters. I'm not including Tehran on the roster. So Hader, Suarez, Pomerantz, Lopez, Hill. Chris Matt, do you put him on there? Steven Wilson, that's 7. And then who am I forgetting? I seem like a dummy right now. I feel like one. I know I'm forgetting someone. Let me look up this depth chart. Okay. Did I say Garcia? Luis Garcia? I don't think I said him. Duh. Sean Poppin, he's another one. So maybe Chris Matt doesn't make it. So Hader, Suarez, Garcia, Pomerantz, Hill, Wilson. That gets you to 6. And then Lopez is on the roster because he's Rule 5. That's 7. And then Sean Poppin, does he make it? That's 8. And then you have Chris Matt, Groom, Kinnear, Tehran, those other starters competing for a roster spot or competing for maybe a 6 rotation spot if they do that. I don't anticipate them doing that unless they bring in another starter, which I hope they do, and they allow Lugo to still be in the rotation. Maybe that's what they want to do to give guys more off or an additional off day to start the year, like they did this past season. Is that right? I'm seeing on Twitter here Lugo has the highest curveball spin rate in baseball. I mean, it was high when we just looked at his Savant. That was high there. So that's definitely his pitch. That's what it seems like. And in the postseason, did I mention that? I don't think I did. Wild card games 1, 2, and 3. Game 1, he won an inning, didn't give up any runs against the Padres. Game 2, he went 1 out, didn't give up any runs. And then game 3, pitched 2/3 of an inning and did not give up any runs. He gave up 2 hits, but no walks, struck out 2. So, I mean, he it seems like he did his job in the postseason there. I don't really remember like who he struck out or what situations he was in, but again, like I mentioned, it was him and Diaz. Those were the 2 Mets relievers that they were like confident at all in going to. All right, let's get to the chat here. Zaid says, where does it say it? Yeah, Lugo. It's been reported on Twitter. John Heyman, Joel Sherman, everyone's pretty much reporting it. Seth Lugo to the Padres, 2 years, $7.5 million a year. He has an opt-out after 2023. That is according to Fabian Ardaya, however you pronounce his name. That is according to him. He writes for The Athletic. Jaime says, thoughts on the Max Schrock. Sorry, say that 5 times fast. Thoughts on that signing? Not a whole lot. I was looking up his baseball reference earlier in the day. He played for the Reds a little bit this past year. Pretty much a utility guy, someone that's going to be probably in the minor leagues. I wouldn't anticipate him making the opening day roster. If he does, it's going to be like as the last guy. I hope that it's someone. I mean, I'd rather have like Will Myers come back and be the last guy there instead of Max Schrock. But yeah, he hit 154 in the majors, a small sample size this past season, 13 games. But he hit over 300 in the minor leagues in AAA. But he can play first, third, left, right, I believe. I think he can play second as well. He's a utility guy. So it kind of seems like a Brandon Dixon a little bit. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of my thoughts. Like, I don't have like these like huge thoughts or long thoughts on Max Schrock. I hadn't heard of the guy entering today, to be honest. So yeah, that's what I got. Irie says now Myers and Belt lefty righty platoon mix up would be nice at a good price. Heck, bring back Voit too for the ladies as well. I don't think that they're going to bring back Luke Voit. He's probably going to find a starting job elsewhere. But I'm open to Myers coming back. Brandon Belt, not really. He's up there in age. He's kind of like Justin Turner. It's like, does it have to be Brandon Belt? Like, he'd be weird in a Padre uniform. Some fans are like, Ben, really? It's about winning. Like, if he can help you win, you bring him in. And yeah, I do agree to that. But I'd rather have Justin Turner than Brandon Belt probably in terms of like production. And I didn't even really want Justin Turner, who just signed with the Boston Red Sox yesterday on a 2-year deal. Kind of weird, huh? Red Sox go with Justin Turner. They don't bring back Xander Bogaerts. They don't bring back JD Martinez. The Dodgers go with JD Martinez over Justin Turner. Dodgers are really trying to get under that luxury tax because they went 1 year with Martinez instead of 2 with Turner. And Turner, what is it, like $12 million a year, something like that? So the Red Sox, they're kind of like in the middle right now, which is like the worst place to be. And the Dodgers, they're still going to be a good team. They're still a playoff team, but they're not as good as they were last year, that's for sure. And the Padres, I think they've closed the gap. Maybe we don't see that in the regular season, but the regular season doesn't matter as long as you get in, right? As we saw this past year. But to talk, with Myers, to hit on that, Irie, your comment there, I'd like to have Will back. It would have to be on a team-friendly deal, though. I think he could start somewhere else. I haven't heard of a big market for Will. The Tigers expressed interest in him a couple weeks ago, but he doesn't really seem that much of a fit there. A lot of people want to bring up the Rockies because he loves hitting there. Maybe he goes there. I don't know. But I'd be open to Myers. He can play first base. He can play the outfield. The Padres need a corner outfielder, at least one more, right? You don't want a Zokar starting in left field. You don't want David Dahl starting in left field on opening day, right? They need someone there. And Tatis, when he comes back, he's not even a guarantee to stay healthy, right? He's going to be in the outfield, but what if he gets hurt? You kind of have, if you're the Padres, you kind of have to like guarantee, or not guarantee. What am I trying to say? You kind of have to uh, designate some time that Tatis is not going to be on the field. Obviously, the suspension, but I'm talking about during the season. Like you have to expect, like when he comes back, you have to expect him to get hurt and miss time because he has not played a full season yet. He's not going to this year, but I'm talking about when he's available, he has not played a full season. Like if he's not suspended, he could play the full season. He has not done that yet because of injuries. So you kind of have to, if that makes sense, bake that in there into Tatis. It's like you kind of have to expect him to not be on the field at some point. So getting another outfielder, whether that's Myers who can play the outfield, Profar, bring him back. Astros were interested in him, but seems like the market isn't that strong anymore. Or the Astros market for him. He's not going to the Astros. That's my point. Because they brought back Brantley. They have Yordan Alvarez, Kyle Tucker, Chas McCormick. Like they seem pretty set there. So that probably increases the Padres' odds at bringing Profar back. I'd be open to bringing him back on like a 3-year deal worth like 30 mil, 10 per year. I don't want to give him 5 for 75 like Benintendi got for the White Sox though. So if another team swoops in there and is willing to do that with Profar, no thanks. Brandon Drury, I'd be open to bringing back, but it seems like there's a pretty strong market for him. I saw a report as I was getting ready to do this show here. Was it from Ken Rosenthal? Let me check. I think it was from Ken talking about Brandon Drury's market and how it's probably ramping up here. Let me double check. No, it wasn't Ken. Let me find it. But yeah, I mean, a lot of these options that I'm open to bringing back are former Padres, but that's okay. It's not like I'm sitting here like past years where it's like I don't want to bring that guy back. No, Myers I thought helped the team. His versatility, him on defense at first base, he was comfortable there. Crony's not going to play first base every day. Having Brandon Drury be able to play first, DH. I thought he performed well with the Padres. And Profar, he helped the Padres win last year. He did. So we know he can at the top of the order. We know he can hit probably near the bottom of the order too, wherever. Like he wants to win. Like that was apparent when he was with the Padres this past year. So those guys, I'm open to bringing them back because they helped the team. And Michael Conforto's out there as well. David Peralta's out there. So those are some intriguing options. I'd be intrigued by Trey Mancini as well. I know he didn't do like amazingly well against the postseason opponents, other pitchers when he faced them in the postseason. When he went over to Houston, it wasn't great. But he's a guy that can play first. He can DH. If you want a platoon, a right-left platoon, you can bring him in. So I kind of like that. Those are some options that are out there. Now, back to Twitter. I'm trying to find that tweet about Brandon Drury. Or maybe I was just imagining it. Oh, here it is. MLB Trade Rumors tweeted it out. So this was from this morning, or earlier today. It says, Brandon Drury is one of the most interesting free agents left still unsigned. And Jeff Passan's reporting, okay, it was Passan, not Rosenthal. Brandon Drury has a very active market. This was from Passan yesterday around 3:30. So Brandon Drury's market is very active, and teams would be willing to give him starting spots. Like, so that's not the Padres aren't going to the Padres would give him a starting spot at DH, right? I would think, but he's not going to be starting in the field. You wouldn't think, because you have Manny at third, you have Bogey at short, you have Kim at second, you have Crony at first, and you're not putting Drury in the outfield. You have Soto, Grish, and then whoever you bring in as a left fielder. So if Drury wants to play the field somewhere, then he's probably going elsewhere. But if he's willing to DH and be on a contender, I think the Padres should welcome him back for a couple years. I don't want to like overpay for him because I do realize that Drury's best year came at Great American Ballpark. Like he hit a bunch of home runs there and capitalized on that, right? Or he's going to in the free agent market here this offseason. So I am kind of hesitant to like go all in on Drury, but I'm interested in bringing him back if it's reasonable. It does seem like Drury has the most, he's garnering the most interest between Profar, him, and Myers. So we'll see how that plays out. Yeah, Gil makes a good point here. Says, still want Walker or Kluber as insurance. I agree. I like Walker. I like Kluber. Kluber has dealt with injuries, but he was able to stay healthy this past year for the most part with Tampa. And Tampa, whoever goes to Tampa, they usually do really well. So maybe Niebla, he does. I think he has a past relationship with Kluber because they both were in the Cleveland organization. So maybe you have Kluber and come back, join with Niebla, and that could work. And Niebla can keep Kluber healthy and keep him pitching well. I'd be open to him being a starter. If that were to happen, I'd probably have Kluber be a starter. I'd have Martinez be a starter. If the Padres go with a 5-man rotation, then you probably put Lugo in the bullpen as a long guy. Maybe you have him piggyback Martinez or piggyback someone because Kluber's a starting pitcher where Lugo, he has not started since 2017 consistently. And again, 18 starts, that's not consistently. You know, that's not even over 20 starts. Right? I mean, if you look at let's look at like Darvish this past year. How many starts did he make in the regular season? That's a regular starter, right? And my baseball reference page doesn't want to load. All right, let's try. Okay, here we go. It says he made 30 starts. So I'm not asking Lugo to make 30 starts, but I am asking him to probably be making 25, right? I think that's where Manaea was around there this past year. And Lugo has not done that yet in the major leagues. So they definitely need some insurance, as Gil said there. Definitely. Johnny said curveball spin rate is in the 99th percentile. Yeah. Is that true? I don't know if it might be in the 99th percentile. If that's true, yeah. I mean, I read on Twitter that he has the best curveball spin rate in baseball. So that's definitely his pitch. And it seems like that's a pitch that doesn't get hit, and hitters know that it's coming. It's one of those. You know, DeGrom's fastball sometimes, you knew it was coming, and hitters didn't hit it. I know Grisham did. He turned it around this past wildcard series. But most of the time, DeGrom's throwing 103, 101 on his fastball. You know it's coming, and you can't hit it. That's what it seems like with Lugo and his curveball. Pedro says, so a better Tim Hill? Tim Hill's a lefty. He has the sidearm action. So, I mean, I think Lugo's breaking ball is probably nastier, but Tim Hill does something that Lugo doesn't. He goes from the left side. He has the wanky, unique arm angle. So maybe a little bit like Tim Hill from the right. But those are two probably different pitchers. I agree, Lakem. Yeah, I agree. Probably not a bad contract. Yeah, Michelle Baez is another name I forgot. You could probably throw him in the mix, but he's kind of like Pomerantz. I'm not going to, and Morahone for that matter, I'm not going to like bank on them being healthy all year. And Baez, he's on the outside looking in to be on the roster. He probably starts in AAA. That's what I would guess. Is he healthy? I think he's healthy, but I think like him, Pedro Avila, they start in the minor leagues. I don't see them making the roster. Todd asks, who's the, I think he's meaning longest tenured Padre if Will leaves. Well, technically, Will is not tenured on the Padres anymore. Would it restart? I think if he signs back, it would restart because he's a free agent. Tenured is like you're with the Padres the whole time. Like, you're not a free agent. So I would guess like someone at the major league level that has consistently been at the major league level. Who would it be? Stammen's the free agent now. Manny, is that what it is right now? Because a ton of these guys are new additions to the team. A lot of these guys were like 2020, 2019, like Manny. So I would guess Manny. But let me go through this depth chart here. Cronenworth was 2020. Kim was, 21? Tatis, well, that was the same year as Manny. I'm talking about like major league level. So, yeah, let's say Manny or Jose Castillo, but that hasn't been like constant at the big league level. Drew Palmer. No, Drew Pomeranz. He went. That was when they pick him up back. They picked him back up. Was that 2020? Because I think 2019 he was with Milwaukee and Sanford, I believe. Morejone's been here, but not at the big league level consistently. So I'd probably say Manny. Looks like Fly God 97 just getting in here. He asked, "Will Seth Lugo still be a starter, or will he be a starter?" Excuse me. They're going to give him the chance to. That's his desire. Maybe he's a starter. He's going to start some spring training games. I would expect. I don't know if it's a guarantee that he's going to be a starting pitcher in the rotation consistently this year. He hasn't done it since 2017, and I hope that the Padres bring in someone else. They bring in Kluber or Waka or Cueto, someone that is like real starting pitching experience earlier or more recently than 2017. Kevin comments here, predictions on whether or not we bring in another pitcher and position player / DH. I think we bring in another pitcher, and it's not going to be one position player or DH. I think it's going to be two, because you don't have a left fielder, at least one that you're confident in, and you need another DH. Maybe you want another bat on top of that. So it's going to be at least two, not just one. So predictions on who they bring in, it seems more and more like they're going to bring back Profar. It seems like all signs are pointing to that. So I'll go with Profar. He'll be starting left fielder on opening day. And I don't know how interested they are in Conforto. Probably want someone. I'll say Myers. I think Drury will go somewhere else on a bigger deal out of the Padres' comfort zone. I'd probably go Myers and Profar if I'm going with two guys. Mancini's out there as well. He could go to the Padres, but we haven't heard anything about the Padres' interest in Mancini right now. So that it's hard to predict, but what I will say is I think they'll bring in another pitcher, and I think that they'll bring in at least a couple more bats. Gil says we should bring Hosmer back, said no one ever. Yeah, I agree with that. There's actually some people in my comments, in my mentions, that are like, no, Hosmer actually wouldn't be that bad. We're already paying him. It would be, low risk. Like, there are so many better options out there than to bring Hosmer back. That would probably create a distraction too. All right. Plenty of people are in here still with, putting their comments in there, their questions. So feel free to keep doing that. And I'll keep giving you my thoughts on that. But first, this episode is sponsored by Gaglione Bros Famous Cheesesteaks and Garlic Fries. Their main location is on Friars Road, and you can visit gaglionebros.com for their menu and contact information. You can also enjoy their cheesesteaks and fries at Petco Park and inside Snapdragon Stadium. Pedro here says, how about Matt Carpenter on a flyer deal? Played awesome for the Yankees, outfielder, utility guy. He seemed more like a first base DH guy for the Yankees? Did he play the outfield a lot? I don't think he played the outfield a ton there. I don't know. I think he'd intrigue me, but I don't want to be giving him like a guaranteed major league deal probably. Because wasn't he dealing with like a foot injury or something at the end of the year? He was like really, really hot, at one stretch with the Yankees. I know that. But he didn't finish that way, I don't think. I'd rather bring in someone that I'm more, I guess, familiar with. Carl with the question here. For another starter, would you want to bring Cueto in? I've been a fan of his for a long time, but I want to win and not have another Mania or Clev issue. I'd be interested in Cueto. Yeah, I think he's better than Clevinger, or at least last year. He had an ERA under 4. It was like 3.5. Or was that his WAR? That might have been his WAR. But the White Sox found something in him this past year. And obviously, he's not the same guy that he used to be with Cincinnati, um, or even the Giants there at the beginning. Yeah, 3.5 WAR, 3.35 ERA, made 24 starts, over 150 innings, over 100 strikeouts. His WHIP was just above 1. So, yeah, I mean, that's another starting pitcher option. If you bring him in, you have Lugo, and then you have Tehran, you have Jay Groom in the minors. I don't know what you can't, bet on Ryan Weathers to give you anything, but that's a solid group of starters. I'd probably rather have Walker or Kluber, but yeah, Cueto's a good option. Carson here with the question, is a Reynolds trade possible? Do they have the trade capital? I personally don't think that it's going to be possible. I mean, let me change that. I don't think it's probable. It's possible. Brian Reynolds, I mean, he's not like Juan Soto, but according to people that are familiar with the discussions, I guess, what I'm reading is they're asking for like a Juan Soto package for Brian Reynolds. So I think the Padres, they're not going to want to give up as much as the Pirates are asking for, but it is possible. It's not probable, but it is possible because the Padres, they do have Jackson Merrill still in the farm system, which is appealing to other teams. Jackson Merrill is a very talented prospect, and you have Bogarts for the next decade, Tatis for the next decade. Hopefully they would extend Cronenworth. I think he has 3 more years of control. So it doesn't seem like Merrill would fit the Padres right now or the next couple years. So maybe they do that. But it would have to take more than just Merrill. That's how much the Pirates are asking for. So personally, I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think the Padres line up great on a trade for Brian Reynolds. And personally, I mean, just bring back Profar. It doesn't cost you Jackson Merrill. I don't expect Brian Reynolds to have like amazing all-star seasons year in and year out if the Padres do trade for him. Like, he's an impact player, but I do still believe in Grisham. You don't have to give up any trade capital. You don't have to give up any trade capital. And if you bring back Profar, $10 million a year, if he wants to do that, he had a really good, a strong impact on this Padres team this past year. You put him in left, he improved his defense greatly this past season. His arm is strong. I was pleasantly surprised by what we got out of Profar in 2022 after saying that the Padres needed to go get a left fielder going into last year. Well, that turned out that Preller was right all along, and Profar was the left fielder. So I'd rather just do that than trade for Brian Reynolds, and you're giving up Jackson Merrill and other pieces, to be honest. I kind of agree here with Juan. For the asking price on Reynolds, no thanks. This team needs pitching. They brought in Lugo, so that's another arm. I think that a priority of theirs needs to be bringing in another arm. I think that their top priority right now, though, is going to be getting some bats, because they brought in Lugo. They were probably eyeing him for a couple weeks now. That's another arm. They brought in another minor leaguer the other day. I forget his name. But they need to fill out that lineup. They need a DH. They need a left fielder. I don't think they want David Dahl as the left fielder, do they? I don't think so. They don't want who's that guy that we were talking about earlier? What's his name? I already forgot. The Reds infielder, Max Schrock. They don't want him starting games. They don't want Jose Azocar starting games, right? When Tatis is out. So they need bats. They need a couple bats. I think that should be their priority now. Like you can be working on multiple priorities at the same time. Like it's AJ Preller. He has multiple staffers, assistant GMs. Like you can work on things. They're going to be working on things at the same time. But if you had to say, hey, Ben, what's your number one priority? It would probably be getting a couple more bats over getting another starter. But again, they're going to be simultaneously working on those two things, I think. Joseph says Profar 1 year, 10 mil. That's not going to get it done. After the year that he got, it's going to have to be 3 years, maybe 5 years. I don't want to give him 5 years, but that's what Benintendi got. And Benintendi and Profar are pretty comparable players. Around the same age, around the same numbers. Both are contact guys for the most part. And Profar, maybe you say Benintendi's a better player than Profar, but Profar can do more than Benintendi. More positions. He can play first. He can play the outfield. He switch hits. So he does stuff that Benintendi doesn't do, so maybe that makes up for it. But so I like Profar. I like bringing him back. I don't want to give him 5 for 75, though, but it's going to have to take more than 1 for 10, definitely. 1 for 10 is like Myers. Or not 10 mil, but 1 year deal. 1 year, I don't know, 5 mil? Is that good enough? I don't even know if that's going to be good enough to bring Myers back. It might have to be more if another team is giving him starting money. But if Will wants to win, then come back to San Diego and be a bench guy. Because he's valuable to this team. I know some are like, oh, it's done. Myers, his time in San Diego, no, he spent 8 years here. All right, that's it. Like the time's up. It's ran its course. But for 1 more year, we saw what he did this past year on defense and being able to step into the lineup. I'd bring him back. I'd rather have him than, Azokar can play center, but I'd rather have him on the roster right now than David Dahl. I know David Dahl's been working, so we'll see what David Dahl does in spring training and how he's performing. But right now, I'd probably have Will over David Dahl, who's on a minor league deal right now. And it's probably like this year's version of like Trace Thompson or Nomar Mazara, just coming in on a minor league deal. Could at some point be on the roster, but he's probably going to be in El Paso, I would think. Irie here says, I hope we keep Blake. That man's vibe is awesome. He's our clubhouse comedy relief. Yeah, I hope we keep Snell because he's a good pitcher. He pitched pretty well down the stretch. He's always a second half guy. I saw someone in the comments ask how long it's going to take Snell to ramp up, like till August. I hope not, but you can't. We've seen what this guy does the last few years, right? With the Padres, you can't expect him last couple years. You can't expect him to be Cy Young Blake Snell right out of the gate. That's not who he is. And he has to figure out batters and get himself into a groove. That's just who he is. Like, I'd rather have him pitching well in September and into October than him going 7 shutout innings in April, right? When you're getting built up anyway. And it's not even expected at the beginning of the season anymore for starters to be going 7 innings, unless you're like, the big starters, Darvish, right? Musgrove. Those big guys, Scherzer, Verlander. Other guys, down the rotation, guys at the beginning of the year, managers, they will take 5 and a third innings out of their guy. So I hope that I agree with your point, guys, in the comments about Snell and the slow start. I hope he doesn't get off to a slow start, but I hope his start is not as bad as it usually is with the walks and stuff like that. But Maybe he gets helped out by having to pitch. Let's go. Get the ball back from the catcher and go, right? The pitch clock being implemented. Maybe he gets help from that and he just doesn't even realize it. And he has to work fast. Who knows? We'll see. I'm not banking on Blake being second half Blake in the first half, but you can only hope, right? And I don't know how high of a priority it is for the Padres to bring back Blake Snell. He's a great personality. It seems like front office likes him. And, they did trade for him, obviously. So there is interest in probably bringing him back. But it seems like the bigger interest, the bigger priority is extending Darvish. Darvish and Snell are free agents after 2023. And we're hearing reports about them, or we have heard this offseason, reports about the Padres and Darvish talking about an extension and communicating about that at some point this offseason. We have not heard that yet about the Padres and Blake Snell. So I think there's probably a higher chance the Padres extending Darvish over Snell. And Snell is a Boris guy. I don't know what agent Darvish has, but Boris guys, they like testing the market. And I think Snell probably thinks, hey, I see Bassett getting $20 million a year. I see Rodon getting a 6-year deal from the Yankees at like $162 million. Like, I want to try to cash in on that. If I have a good 2022, I want to cash in on that. So I don't see him signing an extension. I see him going out and working the market because this is the first time that he's going to be a free agent. Well, Darvish he's already done that, right? He's just trying to go somewhere where he's comfortable, end his career. So I see a Darvish extension being the higher probability, higher chance of happening, if that makes sense. All right, I think that's going to do it here. Talking Friars, episode 305. Padres get Seth Lugo, add him to their group of arms. I say that because I don't think it's a guarantee that he's a starting pitcher for the majority of the season, but we will see. Lugo's a quality arm. You got to be excited about this move. It's not a lot of money, and he will help the Padres win in 2023. Thank you so much for watching on YouTube or listening on the podcast platforms. See ya.